Now let's see how to take output from a function. To take output from a function, we have to use the return keyword. The use of this return keyword is exactly what it sounds like. Whenever Python encounters the return statement, the control automatically gets transferred from the execution of the called function and returns back to where the function has been called and possibly gets a value with it. If you don't understand this completely, it's okay. Let's see how it works. Imagine that you are working for a toy manufacturing company and you have to find the material cost of a toy house. So, first you need to calculate the volume of the material required. Since a toy house looks like this, it is basically a prism and a cuboid joined together. So we can use the prism volume function that we defined in the last video for that purpose, and we have to define another function for cuboid. So let's do that. Def cuboid wall L, B and H. You can see that I use the same names for parameters as I did for the prism function. I did that on purpose to tell you that it's completely okay, because these L, B and H are different from these L, B and H. They are only valid in their own functions. In fact, if you try to access or print any of these variables outside the function, Python will raise an error saying that it doesn't know what that variable is. Try it once for yourself. Try to print L, B or H outside the function. Now let's finish defining our function. We have to calculate the volume, and the volume for cuboid is L times B times H. Now we don't want to print it here. We want to use this value somewhere else. This is when the return keyword is useful. To return a value, use the return keyword and type the value that you want to return. In this case, volume. After the return statement, the control will exit the function, and if there are any statements below, they won't be executed. Try it for yourself. Write any statement below the return statement, such as a sample print statement, and check and see if it gets executed. Now, let's execute that. Our function is defined now. Now, when we call that function, the whole expression of the function call evaluates to the returned value. What that means is, when we call the function with some arguments, this whole expression evaluates to the returned value. So we can assign this to a variable, for example a. Now if we print it, we get the value a. Let's now find out the cost of the material of the toy house. But before we do that, let's quickly change the prism volume function to not print that value but to return it. Okay, to calculate the material volume, I'm creating a variable. Material volume is prism volume plus cuboid volume. Let's give some sample dimensions such as 10, 4 and 5, and for the cuboid 10, 3 and 2. Let's print it and see. We get the output, and just like parameters, you can return not just one value but any number of values you want. For example, let's define a simple function which does nothing but to return a bunch of values. You can return those bunch of values separated by commas like this. Now when we call that function, we can just assign it to 4 different variables. Let's print and see. Indeed, we get the output.